Hello. 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 Hello.
My three buddies got to do the introduction for me. May they rest in peace. I grew up watching them. Unbelievable. Welcome to Government Contracts You Can, should have put the word in there, actually win. And let's get over to the agenda and see what's happening there. What is a government contract? Well, you're all registered on SAM, so you kind of have an idea what a government contract is. And believe it or not, there's only two ways you can go about a government contract. And you can either be a prime contractor or a subcontractor. We'll get into that. Those are the different types. And we're going to define what is a sub and what is a prime. And of course, I'm going to show you the list of all the contracts. Well, not quite all, but just the main ones, the ones that are most popular. And of course, my favorite, as always, is GSA contract. What is a contract? Well, you already know if you've done any bidding and winning or signed anything with any customer, whether it be commercial or federal or state. It's an actual binding agreement between you and, in this case, a government agency, whether it be federal, state, local, municipal, or whatever. And it's also used quite a bit in state contracts, but there's a tie-in there that we'll get into later on. The different types, you have a prime contract and you have a subcontract. What's the difference? Depending upon where you are in the upcoming list that I'm going to show you. A prime contract, or prime contractor, I should say, is responsible for everything to do with administration and execution of the contract that was signed with, in this case, we're just going to use federal government. Same as state, same as everybody else. They're responsible for everything. They're held accountable for everything. A subcontractor, this is something you may not know, and if you have ever been a subcontractor and you're doing it, you've got to be really careful that you don't violate what I'm about to tell you. A subcontractor may not deal directly with the agency that the prime has a contract with. It's not your contract. All you are is a worker bee, if you will. And all correspondence has to come through the prime contractor. Well, you want to see the list? We've been waiting long enough, I'm sure. It's no surprise that I have put GSA at the top of the list because 1987 I decided to only deal with GSA contracts. We've got time and material firm fixed price, we've got IDIQs, we've got GWACs, we've got cost reimbursement. The list goes on and on and on. I didn't want to bore you with all that. What we're going to discuss is that, believe it or not, GSA is an IDIQ contract. So we're going to discuss that again when we get down to that particular section. GSA is the easiest. For those of you that have a contract, hopefully a GSA contract, if you're doing it correctly, you are realizing growth in your revenue and better life for you and your family. It's also known as a federal supply schedule. And back in, just check the chat here real quick, back in October of last year, they did a consolidation of all 39 separate GSA contracts into one. They now call it a MAS, Multiple Award Schedule, which it's always been called a Multiple Award Schedule. It's actually, technically, in the beginning, it was a GSA Multiple Award Schedule contract. That's a lot to say. So they just said schedule contract or GSA contract. And then You talk to people and they say, I need to get a number. Okay, well, if you need a number, you're going to have to go through a little bit of aggravation to get the number. So GSA contract is a GWAC, and it's also an IDIQ. But what about a time and materials contract? Well, kind of tricky the way this works. Time and materials. Well, doesn't that apply to every contract? Time, materials, everything else? It's usually used when the scope of the contract for price and time and everything else is next to impossible to calculate. It's just one of those ongoing things. So it's basically your time and whatever the materials cost. So I don't like them. It's just they're just too open-ended. There's just the accounting is just a nightmare. Now, what about firm fixed price? Well, you could say that a GSA contract is a firm fixed price contract. You're 100% correct for the first year. After that, you can do price adjustments up, down, increases. You're allowed 3 increases a year on GSA. Forget the moratorium that's on right now for all of the price reductions and price increases and inflation and everything else. We're going to do a separate video on that one before long. A firm fixed price is not subject to change based on your expenditures. The administrative burden, fortunately, is minimal. What about the IDIQ? Well, we already know that GSA is an IDIQ GWAC. Anybody know what GWAC stands for? No fair Googling. Let me know in the chat. It provides a limitless supply of products or services. It's basically a blanket. Then we have blanket purchase agreements. We can get into that. If you look at our YouTube channel, we actually have a video on blanket purchase agreements. And it's getting quite a lot of traffic on it too, because a lot of people don't really understand what a BPA is. So from that aspect, what's the pros of having a GSA contract, or pros of having any contract for that matter? I specialize in GSA because it's the easiest and most lucrative. You're going to find out why in a second. You have potential for high profits. Well, not high profits. You have potential for high revenue. So the old adage is, well, if I charge $1 million, I made $1 million, I have one sale. If I charge $1 and do 1 million sales, I have $1 million. Same result, but the difference is with the 1 million customers, you get a chance for referrals, add-on business, whichever. So you decide which side you want to be on. The pros are they're more accessible to small business. Now, GSA, this is where I told you I was coming back to. This is going to be the fun part, is that GSA is an initial 5-year contract. At about 4.5 years into it, you're going to get notification to extend your contract for another 5 years. Guess what's going to happen 2 more times? At the end of the next 5 year, you're going to get another extension for 5 more, and then another one for 5. So if you're quick with math, you already know it's a total of 20 years. Which would you rather have? A contract that may die at any time because funding is bad, or they don't have funding, or virtually the cons part of it is, here's where I'm going with that. All contracts can be terminated for convenience with no reason whatsoever. The government can just say, we want to terminate the contract. It's unilateral. You have no choice. You can't appeal it. It's just, that's the way it is. You agree to that in the beginning. GSA, on the other hand, provides a more secure and long-term solution. Very seldom do you ever see a GSA contract terminated for convenience. Price reduction violations, fraud, on and on and on. So we're not going to go that far. So should you decide, which I strongly suggest you don't, should you decide to go out on the open market and do bidding, we actually have a course at our sister website, gsadoc.com, that will teach you all about the building blocks of a winning proposal. It's two-hour sessions with all the templates, everything you need, and you can find that even if you're on our website at MarketUS.com. Click on LMS, takes you right over to gsadoc.com, and you can look at the building blocks of a winning proposal. And for those of you who don't really want to spend a lot of money and want to do the old, as they call it, DIY, do it yourself, on that same page you can look at our do-it-yourself GSA application process. So from that aspect, it'll work out pretty good. And we've had tremendous response from the folks that have used it. In fact, what we hear a lot of times is, so this is going to be a short one, and it only looks like it's about 25 minutes long. I usually try for 30, and I don't see a lot in the chat, so we'll let that go. I mentioned earlier about doing a 15-minute private one-on-one consultation. The link is right there. You can either copy that, or the next slide will get you the slides. You get the slides and book a meeting. Let's talk. And I don't care if we go over 15 minutes unless I've got back-to-backs. We'll do some shuffling around. Let's see if a government contract's right for you. And, as always, what I always try to do is I try to make it so that we can help you get pointed in the right direction so that you can keep your revenue above
$1 million.
So here's a link for the slides, and you'll just marketus.com/April20, and that will get you the slides. And that's basically all I have. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and we'll see you soon. And by the way, we're creating a new page which will start to list all of our upcoming webinars and all of the replays that we have available for your convenience. So we appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for attending.